So this is a demo for my advanced drawing class. Let's say it's a watercolor demo because we're going to, one of the assignments in the advanced drawing is to do a wash drawing. And using watercolor, I mean, you can do a wash drawing with ink, with different colored inks. But we're gonna do is with watercolor. And let me go over the things that you're gonna need. And I mean, you're gonna need some brushes. And brushes like with oil paint, they come in all different sizes. Square, bright, rounds. So you need a variety of brushes. Some of these brushes I've had for a very long time. Watercolor is a very gentle medium. It doesn't really wear down your brushes. So if you invest in them and you take care of them, they'll last for years. Some of these I had, I mean, probably longer than most of you guys have been alive. Like when I was like in high school. So they're very old brushes. Like I know these three. They were expensive, and even nowadays they're expensive. Like I recently bought these round squirrel brushes. They're pricey, but they're very nice. I really haven't used them. I'm going to take this opportunity to use them. I don't know how they'll work out. So you need brushes. You need paper. And paper comes in different textures. There's hot press, cold press, and rough. See, this watercolor that I have here, it's done on very rough watercolor paper. So the texture of the paper affects the image. This is the La Lomita Church in Mission that I did this, 2005. And so as an example of what you can do, with very heavily textured paper, you can see the kind of like the texture of the paper. This other one that I have here, this paper is hot pressed. No, hold on, my mistake. This is cold press. Cold press is medium. Hot press is very smooth paper. I use hot press for drawing, but just like a medium surface is what I have here. This is cold press, and it's not too rough. It's not too smooth. It's what's in between. And because it's a drawing class, we are gonna, on this, I've got different colors, purples, blues, greens, some yellows. But for the drawing class, we're going to do a monochromatic wash drawing. We're gonna pick one color. You can pick any color that you want, with the exception of like a cadmium yellow, because it's too bright, so it's not going to give you the full range of values. But I guess you could make the point of, depending on your concept, what you want to express, maybe cadmium yellow would work for you. And my suggestion is to use a darker color, that where you can have a wide variety of values, from very dark to very light. So you get your brushes, you got your watercolor paper. Off the camera here, because I couldn't fit everything in the camera, I've got water. I've got this, and then move it over. I have water. 2 containers of water. You want to keep your water clean. Some water for mixing with your paints, some water for cleaning your brushes. You don't want to get your colors dirty. And you need a palette. I mean, you don't need to do anything fancy. Any plastic watercolor palette will do. And I've got these watercolors that I ordered. Yellows. And, like anything, depending on how much money you want to spend, it'll determine the quality of your paints. So these are the materials that you need, and the assignment for you guys, what you guys are going to be doing is, let me move the brushes off the camera here, is what I've got here. You have to complete the same kind of techniques that I'm going to do here. So as I start to draw these, and paint them in, you will see what they are. I've got two large rectangles, one here and one on this side, to do different watercolor techniques. These are basic watercolor techniques that are going to help you create any image. They're like skill builders. They'll get you up to a certain point where you'll become familiar with the medium and get you to understand, the way that the medium is supposed to do. Watercolor is supposed to be a transparent painting medium, which means that you can see through the paint film, and as opposed to opaque painting media, like there's another type of watercolor that is called gouache, which is pretty much as watercolor, but they add white paint to it, so it's opaque. You can't see through it. In traditional watercolor, like what we're gonna do here, and what I expect you to do is the only white that you can use is the white of the paper. So that you've got to utilize the transparency of the medium to use that white of the paper, and you have to save your highlights. You have to leave that alone. You have to be able to manage it so that you don't get your highlights dirty with the color that you don't want. And like I was saying, I've got two rectangles. In one of them, I'm going to do a gradated wash, where it gets dark, where it's darker at the top and slowly gets lighter towards the bottom, and I'll show you how to do that. On this other one, we're going to do a flat wash. And it's easy to do a flat wash with a big brush, but to build your abilities with holding the brush and managing the watercolor, we're going to do with a medium-sized round brush. It makes it more challenging. We're going to do a couple of cubes. One of them, we will develop the values by glazing or layering transparent films of paint one on top of the other to create a three-dimensional cube. The other one, we will do a three-dimensional cube, but we will mix, appropriate values for each one of the planes of the cube, and we'll do the same thing with two spheres. And two value scales. A value scale where we will layer the, let's say like here we've got 9 values. So we'll lay down. We're gonna lay down 9 glazes, you could say, of color until you see that gradation. And the other one we're going to mix the value and then put it down. Mix the value and then. On one of them, it'll be more direct. The other one, we will be glazing. And there's many other techniques that you can use. There's dry brush. I'll try and show you some of that dry brush technique. That is the dry brush. So you squeeze out most of the paint out of the brush, and then you kind of scrub the brush until you get a certain value on there. So this is the assignment that you're going to have to do before you start on your that you're going to have to do before you complete or you get started on your actual drawing. So let me take a color, and like I said, take the color that will give you a good range of values. I'm going to use I use blue. Let me try and find a blue here. Now depending what color you use, also some colors are finer. They will leave a smoother wash. We're gonna be doing a lot of washes. Some are more granular, so if you have a rough paper, or like I have like a cold press paper, which is a medium grade with a pigment that is very granular, it'll look rough. So this is kind of like a crash course in watercolor, but all these things will the texture of the paper, the texture of the paper, the quality of the pigments, all those things are going to affect the image, and depending what you want to do with the image, depending what you want to express. So let's see here what I'm going to do first. So I'm going to use blue. I'm going to use a French ultramarine blue, which is a very dark blue. I'm going to put some of that here as well. So I'm going to start off. See, this watercolor palette, it has different sections here. And another thing you might want to get is some paper towels. And also what comes in handy at times is a hair dryer. So that you can use it to make the paint dry faster. It has different sections where you can have different colors mixed. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to do trying to decide which one to do first. I'm going to put in water, a lot of water. Let's move this over to so you guys can see this. See, I put a cup within a larger container. I'm going to try and keep one of them clean. Now this palette is new, so the water kind of beats up on me. So it creates some kind of technical challenges here. This is a new palette that I bought. I've had palettes that I've used for years. I've stopped using watercolor, but that's how I started getting into painting. I hardly ever use it anymore, but at that time period when I would do a lot of watercolor, I had a palette that I had used for many years, but see, like this is new, so the water kind of beats up on me. Like the surface has some resistance to the water. Then with a lot of use, that becomes a very nice surface to work with. But I ordered this palette around Christmas time. So with the mixing, I'm gonna do a flat wash with a round brush. This is a round brush. When the brush makes a point like this, that is considered a round brush. It's kind of like a drawing pencil. So you see here, mixing a lot of this same color. Now look, this is how, like I mentioned, like I can get a big fat brush like this, just dip it there, and then just quickly fill it in and make a flat wash. But see, look, this is going to be the challenge here. So I gotta make sure that I mix enough of this paint. And see, I need to get out some clean water. Use this other fat brush. I don't want to get the water dirty, so I'm just using the brush to get more water, have more paint. So what size of brushes, you might ask? It's hard to tell, like, because all manufacturers have different sizes. See, this is a size 0, which makes no sense. This is a size 20. It's smaller than the size 0. Because one is squirrel hair, one is synthetic, one is sable. They're all, but just for reference, what sizes to get. Look, I'm gonna put this. I have a pen here. I wish I had like a better answer, but unless you get exactly the same brand, it won't make any sense. So I'm gonna make a flat wash. I haven't done this I think I did this about a year ago with my advanced drawing student. So look, I'm hoping this is. It's better to have more than not to have enough. Water. Rest it here with a paper towel. Put more paint here. So I definitely have a certain kind of mid. It looks very dark here. This blue on the cameras. I look over at the screen, but everything is white here, so that's why it's so hard to determine. And before I start, let me take a picture of this so I can post it for you guys. This is very, very lightly drawn. So if the camera will pick it up here. In Photoshop, so it's a little bit more clear. So this is a big rectangle. I'm gonna start, let's say, at the top. See? So I'm gonna try and make this area as even as I can. I'm gonna move the paint. This could, and see, it's get more of that same paint, and I bring it down to the next stroke. This to help me control my brush. Bring more paint over. And the challenge here is to, every stroke I reload my brush is to keep it consistent and as even as I can. And the paper is going to start to buckle on me. That'll create challenges, but that's part of the challenge of watercolor. Watercolor is kind of like a sketching and drawing medium. And very easy to transport and travel with. This is what artists, look at all this water here built up, so I'm going to try and spread it down. I'm trying to keep keep it consistent. You put way too much water, too much paint. Yep. I'm thinking I should try and do each one of these drawings here. One of these shapes and value scale with a different color. So you can see how each pigment has its different qualities. So this one, you can probably tell that it's getting very grainy. That is the quality of this French ultramarine. And that's the way that it's interacting also with a cold pressed watercolor paper. Load my brush. This is a flat wash. Then you could say control. And this would work, you know, to do a background of a painting. And so this value I have here of blue is pretty much the same color, same value of blue, so that's why it looks nice and flat. Here I have to be a little careful that I use up just what I have here. So flat. So overall it's pretty even. Now I'm gonna decide, I'm gonna try to keep my dirty water here for cleaning my brush. And look, I'm gonna soak up some of that color. So that I can get the brush is just sucking up the paint. So that is the flat wash. I said this many times. So that is, I'm gonna use some of this here. I'll switch over to another pigment, but look, to do the value scale, a layered value scale. Like, I'm gonna do the first, it has 9 sections. So look, in this case, I'm gonna fill it all in with this, again, the same value of blue here. Try to keep it even. See there, they all have one, right now they all have one layer of blue, but it's 9 different sections. So let's say when it dries, I'll go back over it, but I'll do a second layer of blue starting from the second square here. From here back. So from here back, they will have 2 layers. And then from here, they'll have, you know, another 3rd layer, and then a 4th, and then a 5th, and a 6th. So by the end, this will have 9 layers of blue. This will have 8 layers of blue. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. And so each one would look darker because of the different glazes or layers of color that I gave. It's another way to build form. Okay, so that is and I have here some this color here, this red, this is alizarin crimson. Let's see how this one works. I'm gonna use this alizarin crimson. You guys, like I told you, you can just use one color, but just so you understand here the different qualities that each color has, each pigment. hard to keep the water clean, so I've already kind of got all the water dirty there. So look, I'm going to do the same principle that I did with that first value scale, but I'm gonna do it on one of the cubes here. I'm going to just cover the whole thing with one layer of one glaze. You know, watercolors, they call these glazes at times because they're transparent, you can see through them, so that's why it's called a glaze. See, this seems to be, the pigment seems to be more, it seems to be finer in its texture. See, it's not as grainy as the blue. See there, it has one layer. There's many ways of doing watercolor. So that's a this one crimson. And on this one, I'm going to do a gradated wash. I'm thinking I'm going to use a green. I mean, one of my favorite colors. Sap green. Very natural looking green. Looks just like grass. So this permanent sap green. So I put some of it here. Again, everything looks very dark there on the camera. So look what I'm going to do. It's a beautiful green. See that? So I work on some techniques that I would use come to mind. Like you should keep one brush clean to get the water from your container so it doesn't contaminate the water. There's a whole bunch of green here. Now this is how you're gonna do a gradated wash. You get a lot of this paint. With your brush. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna saturate this area. Put some more paint. I'm gonna load this up here, and then what I'm going to be doing, see how dark it looks? I'm gonna slowly add just pure water. I'm gonna keep this area, even. Okay, now after that, clean it. How dark it's getting there. My brush. I'm gonna pick up just water. This is pure water that and I'm gonna add water here. Pure water. And I think it more water. This should create a fading effect here. And just keep adding more and more water. Then kind of bringing the paint down. But it should slowly start to get lighter and lighter. Water, just pure water. That drags the paint down, but so let's say you want to create a sunset effect. Or with green, of course. And with watercolor, you wanna work flat like I am here, so that you can control the way that the paint flows. See there. Now I can I didn't get as much contrast as I wanted, so I'm gonna pick up more paint. And I'm sure you so you can put in more color to create that gradation. So I'm just bringing it down, and because there's more water down here, I started losing the color very quickly here. Maybe the sap green is not as strong as I thought it would be. So now I pick up. The basic technique here is to line the wash as it gradually descends by adding more water. And what I'm doing now is making some corrections. It's not quite doing what I want. Because see, this is again to build your skills in manipulating the paint. And the watercolor paper, depending on its thickness, will be stronger and resist the tendency to buckle. It starts to get kind of wavy because of the amount of water. Okay, now I can try and bring this down. Move the camera a little bit there. Trying to create this effect with color slowly fading. This is a challenging technique. See there, it started to buckle on. So now I've been able to bring some more of this color down. It looks more, it has more of that gradated feel to it. Let's check this color out here. So the watercolor paper comes in different weights. 300 pounds, which is somewhat like almost like cardboard, very thick. 300 pounds, 150 pounds, 90 pounds, 60. The lighter one will start to buckle on you quicker, more quickly. See that? We'll see. I'll wait and see how that dries, but that's the idea. From darker to lighter by adding more water. And then if you have to go back like I've been doing to make the necessary adjustments. Okay. So now look what I'm going to do with the red paint. The red paint's a little bit off camera here. It's hard to keep it all. So now the top plane of the cube is gonna be the brightest. Now to the side and front, I'm gonna give it two more, give it another coat. And see there, you start to see that differentiation of value. You can see where we have two coats, and we have just one coat. We'll let that dry. There it is. Dry, knocked it over. Now I'm gonna do the same thing with the first value scale here. Go to my brush. Really spread out the paint so that it's even, because it starts to settle on you. So that one has, this first one's only gonna have one glaze. This and that. At this point, just two glazes, but eventually each one will have one more than the one that is next to it. And I'm trying to spread on. Now I'm going to going to the one of the circles here. I know what I'm going to do. I want you to also try this. Like on this first circle, I'm going to fill it in with water. As a even. I'll use green here. I'm just going to edge. I'm going to slowly bring in the color so that it's kind of like a smooth transition. How to create the effect of a three-dimensional sphere. Get more of this paint. I can go on the other edge. And then using the 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 brush, the dry brush to smooth it out. And so then I can have the effect of line shadow on it. Now I want to make that turning. I'll find my brush. So in this one, I'm trying to keep it wet. Grab my brush and pick up more paint. And see this, I'm gonna pick up some of this before it settles in more. brush. So this one has, now back to this value scale, there's 1, 2, at this point it has 2. And I'm gonna give from the third square, all of these, a third layer of blue. And I can start from the bottom, the back here. This is the same value in the third one. You can start see the gradation. So I wait for it to dry a little bit. I might have to give another third coat there. See, that's the idea that you're glazing. Now we'll go back to this one. Clean my brush. Get more paint here. Now the side plane is the one that's gonna have only 3 values here. This side plane. See, I've created a 3-dimensional cube by layering the same value of red. Let's create a top plane, front plane, and side. Now this one, I want to mix 3 distinct values. So I've got the red one still here. I'll put water on this side. So I'll take some of this red. See, this has a lot of water. That's the original mixture. So we have 2 values. I'm gonna make a darker one on this side with a lot more glycerin crimson. See, some of the tubes are quite small. And they'll go a long way. And it probably need just one small tube of this for this assignment. And now, see, it's collecting from the side. I can pick some of it up in my brush. And see, with watercolor, it's a challenge here. Like I laid down the third wash, and the second one was still not dry. So I'm gonna try and fix that. Just so that I can make it even, I'm gonna spread this again over the second wash here. And I'll let it dry. Otherwise it's not gonna work. So forget that it has, pretend it has two washes. Let it dry there. Brush. The lightest value here of the glycerin crimson. So, see, I'm just adding water to make it lighter. I'm not adding any white paint. I'm using the translucency of the water and of the pigment so we can see the white of the paper. There's also things called liquid frisket that you can put over a certain area, like a liquid latex. And then you can paint over it, and then you can scrape out the liquid latex, and you would have protected the white of the paper. Now this is going to be there might be some bleeding. Now, I want to be able to finish this. Okay, give me assignments. Take see there. I mixed the light, dark, light, middle, and then I'm going to make the darker red here. As opposed to layering the same value here, I'm mixing darker values. And depending what kind of edges you want, you might want a soft edge. See this, because when they're wet, they bleed into one another, and you can get a softer edge. See the edges there are crisper here. They're still bleeding to one another. You see, on this I go back. So what happens? That's pretty dry already. Clean my brush. And to soften the edge here, that because you're gonna get the effect of a sphere. This is gonna take a while to dry. There's so much water. Now, another technique, like I mentioned, is the dry brush technique. So look, I'm gonna do my brush. I'm gonna get rid of the. I don't think this brush is gonna work with the. See, I've taken out most of the paint. See this? This is the dry brush. It works better with an older brush. But see, this is the idea that. I'll get another brush. See, because I removed most of the paint. And it creates a textured surface. And it is more like drawing. I'll get this brush here. Get out most of the paint. It's just like scrubbing. These are some of the basic techniques. See this technique is what I intend to do here. Now there's time limit, like I don't know, this already been like an hour and a half. And that's still not dry. I don't have a blow dry. But that's how I intend to finish this. You know, this has one coat, this has two, and eventually I want this to have three, and then this to have four layers, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. and it will gradually darken. This other one is I want to do this technique. So with the time that I have left, even though this is I'm not doing this during class time, I want to spend the whole evening, doing this. And you can use like techniques all together on your paintings or certain objects. This is a dry brush. So I'm gonna make this really dark. I'm just trying to do this with it. So really dark. Okay. I'm gonna put in more water. It'll be my next value. I gotta make sure that they don't touch because it's just going to another. A bit more water, put more water there. So instead of adding white, I would do in painting with oils instead of water. Water. And more water. Now it's always better to use purified water than to using tap water. But yeah, you're gonna use like distilled water. Because tap water is gonna have more impurities. And then you have just by adding more water, it gets lighter. See, this is a little bit dry. I can. I mean, you can do all kinds of, different textured effects. You can bring that over to like almost like a cross hatching. using this here to get rid of my most of the paint. So those are some of the techniques. I'll post a picture of this once this is dry. It's gonna take me like a day, because of the nature of this kind of glazing. Uh, but this is what you want to have. You want to have a flat wash done with a round brush. You want to have a gradated wash, darker to lighter. This is the thing, as it dries, you get blooms like that, which is part of the watercolor technique. But overall, it's darker and it's gradually gone, lighter. You want to be able to build three-dimensional forms by layering glazes of the same value to create this contrast, create a top plane, front plane, side plane. You also want to create the illusion of three-dimensional form the same way that I did this one, by directly mixing a value for the top plane, a value for the side plane, a value for the front plane, a value for the side plane. And so they look pretty solid. This is by, layering the paint and smoothing it out, working the wet watercolor, and then creating, different effects with the dry brush technique. Of course, you can also get a toothbrush, or let me try and get a stiffer brush here. Pick up some of this dirty green paint, and you use splatter, and you can combine them. You can create very weathered surfaces. More like a airbrush effect. Also, you have to wait for it to dry, otherwise it'll start to accumulate. But see, very smooth. And so those are some of the basic watercolor techniques that I want you to practice, and it should give you an introduction into how to start working with it, and so that you're able to complete your wash drawing. So I'll end the video right there, and I'm not satisfied with this because I should have brought a hair dryer so I could have layered it on. But I think this should give you a basic understanding of watercolor.